Colleagues, at this time, there is a bill on call. I'm going to lift the call on file item 25, AB 787. The clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 25. The measure passes. We are going to pass temporarily item 34 and take up file item 35, AB 292. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 292 by Assemblymember Santiago, an act relating to pupil nutrition.
Mr. Santiago, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 292 would ensure that every student has adequate time to eat their lunch in school. The California state meal mandate requires that every public school provide a nutritious and free program to each eligible student. Unfortunately, in California, certain students sometimes are unable to eat due to enough sufficient time during lunch. This bill would ensure that they had adequate time to eat during lunch, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Medina, you're recognized.
I rise in support of this bill. As a classroom teacher for 34 years, I saw too many kids not have time to eat lunch and throw their food away. So very much recommend an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 22. The measure passes. Let's go to file item 36, AB 761. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 761 by Assemblymember Levine and others, an act relating to resource conservation.
Assemblymember Levine, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 761 establishes a framework to evaluate the potential of using best management practices on agricultural lands, ranches, and rangelands to increase carbon sequestration and water retention. Initial research shows we can remove 3 years' worth of emissions from the atmosphere while reducing water needs by as much as 25%. This bill will help us determine if these efforts are successful. I ask for your aye vote on AB 761.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 53, noes 9. The measure passes. Moving to file item 37, AB 827, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 827 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, an act relating to safe schools.
Assemblymember O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 827 requires that schools provide their staff with information on support resources for LGBTQ students as part of an existing requirement to publicize anti-discrimination policies. These resources might include anti-bullying policies, gay-straight alliance clubs, school staff with special training on the support of LGBTQ students, among other resources. Research has shown that these resources not only improve student safety, they have a significant effect on student learning. As a teacher, I have seen many LGBTQ students struggle, and I've seen teachers, though concerned and motivated to help, unaware of resources available to help their students. AB 827 will ensure that this vital information is provided to school staff so that they may better support their and our students. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 15. The measure passes. File item 38, AB 1025, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1025 by Assemblymember Thurmond, an act relating to pupil health.
Assemblymember Thurmond, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to present AB 1025. This is a bill that would provide mental health services to our students who have needs, whether they be behavioral, special education, or support in dealing with trauma. We know that many students experience a need, and we often don't have counselors and others who can support them. In my career as a social worker, I've spent many opportunities working with students in schools, and we've seen that programs such as these can actually lower the costs that we pay for special education programs and can help to create great school climate. It also helps to reduce the stigma associated with mental health. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 52, noes 9. The measure passes. Moving now to file item 39, AB 1201. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1201 by Assemblymember Salas, enacting Fish and Wildlife.
Assemblymember Salas, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1201 requires the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to develop a science-based plan to help address predation of native endangered species in the Delta. With that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure passes. Moving now to file item 40, AB 1330. The clerk will read. Apparently we've already taken up item 40. File item 41, AB 252. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 252 by Assemblymember Holden, enacting pupil instruction.
Mr. Holden, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present Assembly Bill 252, a measure relating to STEM curriculum. AB 252 creates a grant program to help school districts meet the cost associated with establishing or expanding advanced placement courses in the STEM fields. Across the state, minority, female, and lower-income students do not have access to these classes. AB 252 would give students exposure to rigorous college work and prepare them for college and career pathways. This bill has no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 12. The measure passes. Okay, we're going to pass temporarily items 42 and 43. Item 44 will pass and retain. Item 45, AB 954. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 954 by Assemblymember Mathis and others, enacting into water, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Mathis, you're recognized. File item 45.
Thank you. Members, today I am presenting AB 954, a bill which will create a new grant and low-interest loan program to help homeowners pay for vital life-sustaining drinking water and wastewater improvements. Specifically, 954 will enable homeowners who are otherwise ineligible for traditional financing programs to be able to deepen or improve their wells, hook up to existing lines, or get treatment for their wells. Members, we've talked about the drought. We've talked about how water in California is the #1 issue facing us. This bill helps those people who aren't able to help themselves right now. It gets them water immediately. I ask for your support on this measure. Let's help these people in my own district, the city of Porterville. These people have been without water for over a year. They have to take their children to a church parking lot to where there are shower trailers so their kids can get a shower and brush their teeth before they go to school. Members, this is California. We're the 7th largest economy in the world. Let's do something. Let's help our people. And I ask for your support and for your aye vote. Let's take care of the people of California. Thank you.
Mr. Alejo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. East Porterville is a small community in Tulare County that is the poster child for emergency drought response. They're literally ground zero for our drought. More than 70% of this community is currently without water. Their taps don't run because their wells have gone dry. Residents are leaning on the goodwill of local community heroes like the Beltran family and Donna Johnson and other local nonprofits that truck in water for bathing and drinking for their fellow neighbors. And they have received short-term assistance from the State Office of Emergency Services. But that's not enough. People still don't have water, and that's unacceptable in modern America and certainly in California, the 7th largest economy in the world. And they're also not alone. There are many communities facing the same challenges as East Porterville, and there will be more in the months ahead. That's why I'm calling for your support of this bill by my colleague from Visalia. This bill will create a grant and loan pilot program to provide funding to communities essentially defined as disadvantaged communities for drinking water and wastewater connections. This bill speaks directly to the needs of communities like East Porterville, and it will make financing available for hooking up communities up to water and sewer mains. It will also make financing available to cover water connection fees that these communities cannot afford. It will make funding available to closing abandoned wells, which many residents will have to do, or drilling deeper wells or repairing broken wells. Funding won't create more water, but it will help these communities who lack both water and the financial wherewithal to finance new infrastructure projects that bring them new water or a cleaner water source. Members, imagine how you would live today if every time you turn on your tap, not a single drop came out. This is life every day in East Porterville, and not only for weeks. This has been the reality since last August when these wells went dry. I'm proud to work in a bipartisan manner with my colleague from Visalia. I'm asking for your support to solve the problems for our most needy communities that are challenged by this historic drought. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Assemblymember Grove, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in support of this bill, and I thank my colleague from Tulare County for bringing this forward. I also applaud my colleague from Salinas for making the comments. I know he has a deep connection to Tulare County, but it is true. Porterville is ground zero. I mean, can you imagine when we get sworn in, half the body stands up when they introduce the Los Angeles County delegation. Could you imagine if the Los Angeles County delegation was dealing with a ground zero situation like we in the Central Valley are dealing with in Porterville? I think that we would have addressed this issue much sooner, and I just applaud the author for bringing it forward, because what my colleague from Salinas did say about people having to put these black tanks outside of their homes and then water being able to be brought on a daily basis because when they turn on their tap water, nothing comes out. So they have to go with their buckets down to the center of town or the center of the street, fill their buckets up and carry it back to their house. That's happening right here in California and has been happening since August. I applaud the author for bringing it forward. I thank him for his commitment to bring water and clean, potable, good water to the constituents in Tulare County, and I applaud the comments from my colleague from Salinas to address this issue and make it a bipartisan issue. Please vote aye on this bill. There are people that are living like they have been living in a third world country that desperately need to be able to make sure that they can have clean, good drinking water and bathing water, washing water into their homes. Thank you.
Mr. Gomez, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker and members, I rise in support of AB 954. I want to commend my colleague from Porterville for his advocacy on this bill and for his idea on this bill. He came in and spoke to me about this important piece of legislation and really kind of described the scenario that folks in Porterville and in this district and throughout some parts of the state are really facing when it comes to water. And we really don't understand that until we tried to live without water and tried to live without running water in our own homes for a while. And you start to see the strain that it puts on a family, the strains it puts on individuals. So this is a creative bill that basically says that anybody and everybody from all parts of our state matter, and it's an investment in them. It's not a handout, it's a hand up. So I completely support this bill and ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Mr. Mathis, you may close.
Members, again, this bill doesn't only just help the folks in my district, it helps everybody across the state. As the drought continues to spread and people continue to face these challenges, this does give them that hand up. Let's help our people and do what's right. I ask for your support and ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 60, noes 0. The measure passes. Colleagues, at this time we're going to take up file item 46, AB 798. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 798 by Assemblymember Bonilla, enacting into post-secondary education.
Assemblymember Bonilla, you
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 798 has the potential of saving a lot of money for our college students and for the parents of college students. As you know, one of the things that costs the most when you send your child to college is the textbooks. What this bill does is it uses, and we're going to leverage some existing funding to really incentivize our professors to begin using more open educational resources. It's a program that can be adopted, a grant program on college and university campuses to provide professors the one-time extra resource they need to transition some of their materials to open educational resources. We believe every year a student pays approximately $1,300 for textbooks, and that there's the potential cost saving for students and families of $128 per course when a traditional textbook is replaced with open source textbooks. This is a proven strategy. Our own Assembly colleague from, I don't know your city, Mr. Lowe. Is it Santa Clara? He went to Foothill De Anza Community College that actually has practiced this and saved students an awful lot of money. So it's a proven strategy, and with that, I do ask for your aye vote. Is it Santa Clara?
Mr. Patterson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. And I want to applaud the author, and I want to ask for a vote, an aye on this. The entire world is going to technology, away from paper and to technology. Imagine if our students could cut the cost of their textbooks, go to the internet, go to these open sources, and do the work. And they can do the work on their time at an expense that is remarkably lower. This is a wonderful bill. I applaud the author and ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Ms. Bonilla, you may close.
I ask for your aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 62, no 0. The measure passes. Colleagues, going back to file item 42, AB 521, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 521 by Assemblymember Nazarian, enacting into HIV testing.
Mr. Nazarian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. Approximately 16% of Californians who are HIV positive do not know that they are HIV positive and are not receiving treatment. And because of that, they are intentionally exposing others. This percentage rises to 58% for individuals under the age of 24. 20,000 Californians who do not know they are HIV positive are causing 70% of the new infections. In an attempt to identify these individuals, AB 521 requires an HIV test to be offered to a patient upon admission to the hospital from the emergency department. This bill does not mandate across-the-board testing. AB 521 simply requires the test to be offered and then requires the patient to give his or her consent to the testing. If the patient does not consent, then the testing will not be administered. And I will be taking amendments to clarify these changes.
Mr. Gibson, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise to support AB 521. I want to thank the author from Sherman Oaks for bringing this good measure forward. Colleagues, I chair and have chaired for the past 16 years a nonprofit organization called Positive Imagery Foundation. We deal with HIV and AIDS in the African American Latino community. And I happen to know firsthand a number of my friends who have passed as a result of HIV, and also individuals who live with it and not know. And I think this is a good measure that we certainly need to support, going into the medical emergency room and being given this option to be tested. Again, I think it's the way to know so that people can get treated for this particular disease. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Dr. Wood, you're recognized.
Yes, I just want to rise in support of 521. I want to thank the author for working with the emergency physicians on this bill and addressing the realities that they face every day. So I urge your aye vote on this bill.
Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a brief question of the author for point of clarification.
Without objection.
Did you say that the bill currently does require that there is testing for everyone who is admitted and has blood drawn? Or is it that you have the intent for amendments that would just make but the amendments have not been made, that would just make the test optional for the patient?
Mr. Nazarian.
The test, that hasn't changed. The test is optional. It's just required for the hospital to offer the test. And the main point of contention was whether it was going to be in the emergency room or in the hospital. And so I will be taking amendments to move it into the hospital.
Thank you.
After admission.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Question to the author.
Without objection.
Do your amendments satisfy the concerns of the California Hospital Association, the California Medical Association, and the American College of Emergency Physicians? Their opposition in the hearing, the health hearing, I thought was fairly... they made some very, very good points about the difficulties in doing what you were requiring them to do. Will your amendments or have your amendments removed this opposition?
Mr. Nazarian?
Yes, but I do hope that we're also voting on the merit. Thank you.
Excuse me, is the California Medical Association, the California Hospital Association no longer in opposition?
Mr. Nazarian?
I think I answered the question. Yes. They're going to be removing their opposition once the amendment is taken. But again, I do hope that we're voting on the merits of the bill as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion, Mr. Nazarian, do you have anything you'd like to add in a close? Okay. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 14. The measure passes.